So anyway, again, good afternoon, everyone. And for this afternoon, we'll be discussing the Rizal Law and the different challenges it faced when it was still in the middle of its legislation process and ano yung mga provisions ng Rizal Law. Okay? So Rizal Law, or also known as Republic Act 1425, has been around for more than 50 years, I guess. Kasi naipasa yung batas since 1956. So medyo matagal na yung batas. And it was actually proposed by Claro M. Recto. The first version was by Claro M. Recto. It was filed in the Senate on April 3 of 1956. And hindi naging madali yung naging proseso ng pagpasa ng batas na Rizal Law or Rizal Bill at that time. Medyo mahaba na nga at challenging yung legislation process itself, but yung mismong proseso natagalan because of the different controversies facing the law. Ang daming may ayaw sa batas, ang daming umo-oppose sa law. Maybe kung nangyari ang pagpasa o pag-propose ng batas sa panahon natin ngayon, it could have been easier, I guess, na maipasa yung batas because today, whenever we use Rizal in our statements, in our research, or whenever we use Rizal in his statements or in his words, we don't usually, we don't usually being questioned. Hindi tayo kini-question ng tao or with our audience because who are we to question Rizal? We have that notion na parang we respect Rizal too much with that na halos hindi na natin na nire-raise yung concern natin whenever it involves Rizal at some point. But it was a very different situation back then in 1956. So, i-discuss natin yung challenges ng Rizal Bill throughout the legislation process. Okay? So, legislation process sa Senado kasi ito nagsimula with Claro M. Recto. Meron siyang medyo mahabang proseso. So dumadaan siya sa filing of the bill, and then the first reading, second reading, and then the third reading. So basically almost the same lang naman yung legislation process ng Senado at ng House of Representative at ng I think also the lower legislative bodies in the local government units. I don't know to some, but in Congress in general, Senate and the House of Representatives, the same process lang yung pinagdadaanan. So dito tayo sa Senado, since sa Senado naman unang dumaan yung batas, so Claro M. Recto filed the law on April 3, or the bill on April 3, 1956, and it was given the Senate Bill number 438. And then, of course, dumaan ito sa first reading and then all of the committee hearings at naipasok siya sa Committee on Education. Sa Committee on Education, of course, as needed, nagtawag yung Senado ng mga experts when it comes to Rizal, of course, kasi gusto nilang ma-research din at malaman kung tama ba yung contents ng batas. At the same time, if ever na maituro na yung Rizal subject ay ano ba yung magiging content nung subject itself. So they went into different na mga consultation. So after that, it proceeded to the second reading. Then sa second reading dun na nagtagal at nagkaroon ng mas maraming delays yung Senate Bill 438. Kasi ang daming tumututol sa batas. Aside from Claro M. Recto, Jose Laurel was also supporting the law. And there are three other senators also supporting the law at the beginning. And the rest of the senators are against it. Excuse me. So the rest of the senators the rest of the senators are against it. And yung kanilang reason kung bakit ayaw nila, they are actually kumbaga echoing the same reasons from the Catholic organizations, the Catholic groups, and the Catholic Church itself. They almost have the same arguments. They fear that it might kumbaga interfere with religious freedom and religious beliefs. So kasi nga ang sa original na batas sa Senate Bill 438 required ang lahat ng estudyante to read the two novels, Noli, Tangere and Il Filibusterismo. At doon din nagsimula yung mismong concern ng iba't ibang religious group, the Catholic Church and the rest of the senators opposing the law. They fear that it might, yun nga, affect the religious perspective of the college students reading the novels of Jose Rizal. Kasi nga, according to their argument, na when you read something, it is very open to multiple na interpretations. Especially if yung interpretation mo ay negative o yung mali, ay talagang magkakaroon ng negative perspective ang isang tao towards something because yun nga, na-misinterpret niya yung kanyang binabasa. And that's a fact in reading something. So how much more in reading a novel. So we can interpret an entire novel into in different ways. So yun naman yung concern ng Catholic Church because isa sa mga parts or may mga parts doon sa dalawang novels, and I think we are also familiar with this, na talagang nagpapakita ng abuses being done by Catholic Church officials, Catholic priests to be specific. Diba, we have Padre Damaso almost raping Maria Clara, right? And also we have abuses being done by Catholic officials to the two kids, yung si Crispin at si Basilio, na pag hindi nasa-satisfy ng mga Catholic Church officials, especially ng mga praile, yung kanilang utos, ay talagang sinasaktan sila. Yung mga bata, hindi lang talaga palo, talagang sinasaktan hanggang nabubugbog na yung mga bata, nagkakaroon ng pasa. So it's basically child abuse. So hindi lang yun, marami pang ibang instances dun sa dalawang nobela showing some abuses and negative impression of the Catholic Church dun sa novel. At yun yung isa sa mga naging concern ng Catholic Church na baka what if na isipin ng mga kabataan reading the novels na hanggang ngayon ay ganito pa rin yung Catholic Church. What if they will think na the Catholic Church and the Catholic officials in general are still very abusive, whereas according to them na nagbago na yung simbahan in general. Hindi na sila katulad nung simbahan na kinalakhan ni Rizal nung panahon niya kasi ibang-iba yung simbahan nung 1950s. Kung meron may mga Catholic Church officials na involved sa mga hindi magandang gawain, it's very, kumbaga, ano na lang yun, isolated cases, hindi na yung general situation of the church. Very different nung time ni Rizal na yung abuses ay somehow a general characteristic of the church. No? Yung ibang abuses is not being done physically, yung pananakit or what, excuse me. Yung ibang abuses ay naidadaan sa administrative actions kasi liban sa pagpapatakbo ng simbahan, yung mga pare at yung mga tawag niyan, yung mga churches in several towns, sila na rin mismo yung nagpapatakbo ng mismong local government, quote unquote, local government ng mga pueblos o ng mga towns na to. So they are not just controlling the religious na activities of the town, they are also controlling the collection of taxes, implementation of laws, etc., etc. So they are very involved in the society, whereas dapat hindi na naging involved. Yun yung naging argument ni Rizal. Dapat hindi na involved yung mga praile sa mga bagay na to. And he also recognized the fact na hindi rin naman kasi lahat ng mga Pilipino o Indio are capable of doing things because walang pinag-aralan. Pero sabi ni Rizal, very kumbaga fast learner o natututo naman, hindi naman fast learner, but yung mga Filipinos naman are very keen on learning new things. So, pwede naman sanang maituro sa mga Indio or Filipinos yung mga ganitong activities para sila na mismo yung humawak sa mga ganitong posisyon o mga ganitong activities. So, yun lang. Unfortunately, hindi na ituturo o na ibabahagi ng Catholic Church yung kanilang alam sa mga Filipinos because they want it to be, kumbaga, exclusive within them because they are, kumbaga, also gaining something from this Kumbaga, they are also enriching themselves, yumayaman din sila, nagkakaroon sila ng properties, etc., etc. So, gusto na rin nila yung sort of corruption na nangyayari sa society. So, kumbaga nagiging enabler na rin sila at some point. So, yun yung isa sa mga nagiging concern ni Rizal through his novels, and not just through his novels, but also in other of his works, no, written works. At yun din yung isa sa mga naging concern ng Catholic Church kasi liban sa novels, so mga naisusulat din si Rizal na somehow questioning or challenging the different views of the Church regarding their several activities na hindi rin nagustuhan ng Catholic Church because some of these activities or yung ibang activities naman na kumbaga kinall out ni Rizal ay at some point na bago na ng Catholic Church. But there are still some of these activities na hanggang ngayon ay na-retain ng simbahan, ginagawa pa rin nila, na at some point they still kumbaga take it offensively because yun nga, kinall out yun ni Rizal even though years or centuries ago na yon. So, kinall out yun ni Rizal. So, very sensitive sila sa mga bagay na yon. So, parang ini-impluwensyahan ni Rizal, although patay na siya, ini-impluwensyahan ni Rizal yung thought ng mga Filipinos, especially the younger generation, through his works on how they should perceive the Catholic belief in general. So, yun yung concern ng Catholic Church. So, para naman ma-settle yung issue na ito with the proponents of the law and of course the people against the law, nagkaroon sila ng another consultation, nagkaroon ng another meeting, closed-door meeting and public meetings and hearings to settle this concern. At isa na nga doon sa mga naging concern na yon ay nabago naman. Na-address naman yon at the end of the day, natanggal at sinuportahan naman ng Catholic Church yung kanilang batas because of the bargain. So nagkaroon sila ng bargaining na babaguhin yung provisions, ibang provisions ng batas, and then they will support the law. Hahayaan na nila na ituro yung Rizal as a subject in the collegiate institutions. So nagkaroon naman sila ng agreement doon. So later on, if you can remember, April 3 of 1956, na ipasa yung batas, na i-file yung bill rather sa Senado, na ipasa yung batas by June na. So medyo matagal. So it took them 2 months for them to really pass the bill. Matagal na yun kung susumahin kasi hindi naman ganun karami yung, hindi naman ganun ka-intricate kasi yung sistema before compared ngayon na medyo mabilis na yung 2 months ngayon sa pagpapasa ng batas. But before, medyo matagal na yun. So, but anyway, nevertheless, the law was passed on June 12 of 1956. Hindi yun na taon ng Philippine independence because June 12 of 1956, hindi pa natin sineselebrate yung Independence Day by June 12 ng year 1956. 1960s na natin sineselebrate yung Independence Day on June 12. So, July 4 pa itong Independence Day. 6 at 9. So, hindi yun na taon. Nagkataon lang talaga na June 12 siya na ipasa. It's not because itinaon na ng Independence Day. So, just to clarify that. Okay? So, check natin kung ano ba ang provisions ng batas. So, here, the contents or the provision of the Rizal Law or known as the Republic Act 1425, meron siyang 5 sections. Kukonti lang kung susumahin pero it's already enough to imply kung ano yung kailangan gawin. So we have 5 sections pero yung andito sa ating slides ay section 1, 2, and 4 lang yung inilagay ko because yung section 3 is just the translation of the text from Spanish to English to Filipino and other dialects if needed. And then yung section 5 naman is the funding para maipatupad yung batas. So yung section 1, 2, and 4, yun talaga yung may mga specific contents na kailangan siguro natin mas maintindihan regarding the law. Okay? So for section 1, dito nakalagay na courses on the life and works of Rizal, particularly novel, shall be included in the curricula of all schools, colleges, and universities, public man or private, provided that in the collegiate courses ay yung uncensored version of the 2 novels yung magiging basic text. So bakit merong ganito? Okay. So sa section 1, first paragraph, dito sinasabi na kailangang ituro yung life and works si Rizal sa mga estudyante, especially in college. May specific subject talaga siya. And hindi lang sa college, kailangan rin nito sa basic education. Although in the basic education, elementary, high school, senior high school. I mean, yeah, senior high school. Kasi at that time wala pa namang senior high school. So, ano lang, elementary at saka high school in general yung 4 years or junior high school na today, itinuturo yung buhay ni Rizal pero naka-spread out siya into several subjects. Minsan naituturo yung buhay ni Rizal in English through his writings or in Filipino in his writings or sa araling panlipunan sa kanyang mga ginawa sa society. So naka-spread out siya, wala siya in one subject. Okay? Pero naituturo siya. And yung novels naman ni Rizal in the basic education, sa time ko ano pa yun sa 3rd year at saka 4th year. So Noli Me Tangere at saka El Filibusterismo. And ewan ko lang sa inyo kung meron pa niyan sa junior high school days ninyo, pero sa amin nung wala pang senior high school meron naman siya. Okay, so naituturo yung Noli Me Tangere as a separate na subject for under Filipino, yung Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. Pero may censored siya na parts, ng mga parts na cannot or hindi in-include kasi they deemed these parts as kumbaga not suitable for young readers. Either it's violent or sexually explicit or words are not applicable or in terms of religion kay ano siya sensitive. So may mga parts na cannot. So just a very basic of the novels yung itinuturo sa basic education. Yun lang ang kaibahan nun pagdating sa college because in college ay full text na siya ng Noli Me Tangere at Il Filibusterismo. Sabi ni Angelo, ano yun, during junior high school, namo sir na ay Noli sa 3rd year, El Fili sa 4th year. Yeah, so ganun din sa amin. So di ko lang kasi alam kung ganun pa rin sa panahon ninyo. So I guess ganun pa rin sa junior high school. Kay wala mong good mi nag-agi senior high. So good thing na maing-ana gihapon. So thank you for that. So anyway, yon. So ganun sa panahon namin or even tawag niyan. Tama ba? Yeah, junior high, senior high, I mean, yeah, 3rd year, 4th year yata po. Di lang ko sure kung 3rd year, 4th year ba sa amua or 1st year or 2nd year. Di lang ko sure. Basta somewhere in our 4 years. So siguro ganun din sa inyo. So mabuti naman. Sa ano naman sa college ay hindi siya naka-spread out. Naka-ano talaga siya, naka-separate as a subject. So that's why you have Rizal as a subject. Talagang that's why you have this one. Required kayo to take the Rizal subject regardless of your course, maskin IT pa mo or CS or BTL Ed or sa ba accounting, engineering or unsa pa ng mga murag unlikely kayo to have a history as a core subject. Kailangan gihapon siya. Kay required siya by law to have Rizal as a subject for all tertiary students. So that's why you have this one. You have to take this one. And you are also required to read the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo. Pero may exemption yan. Later, discuss natin yan. So anyway, yung Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo naman for college ay hindi na siya yung censored. Yung full text na siya. Okay, kung ano yung translated text from Spanish to English, gano'n na. Wala nang tinanggal na parts because they deem it, kumbaga, dili siya suitable for young readers or blah, blah, blah. College siya man daw. So, okay, wala na. Dili na siya censored. Okay? So, in paragraph 2, in relation to the requirement of reading the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo, the Board of National Education or the Commission on Higher Education na yan today, dati Board of National Education pa, today CHED na siya. So they are actually given the authority and the responsibility to create a process or a process on how a student can be exempted in reading the Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo because yung mga estudyante meron silang option. They can take the option of being exempted in reading Noli Me Tangere and Il Filibusterismo given that the reason is because of religious belief. Ana. Diba, if you can remember, sa original text ni Claro M. Recto, required yun tanan to read the two novels. But during the last parts of the law, yung later part na of the legislation process, yung naging bargain ng proponents of the law at nung mga Catholic groups, hahayaan pa rin na ipabasa yung dalawang novels, but give the students the option na if they want to be exempted because of their religious beliefs, so they should be given that option. Kung ayaw talaga nila, if they feel makakaapekto yun sa kanilang paniniwala. Okay? That's why we have this provision in Section 1 na the Board of National Education was directed to promulgate rules and regulation in providing for the exemption of students for reasons of religious belief. So kung kayo gusto nyo na ma-exempt in reading the two novels, so ano lang kayo, mag-file lang kayo ng letter of exemption dun sa CHED. And of course, under oath yan. So kailangan yung panotaryo sa isang abogado under sworn statement that you want to be exempted from reading the two novels because it might affect your religious belief. And submit nyo sa CHED, antayin nyo na ma-approve yung request ninyo, and then if ma-approve, then you are exempted in reading the novels, but not exempted in taking the subject. Okay, magkaiba yun. So, may Rizal ka pa rin, pero hindi ka na magbabasa ng kanyang dalawang novels kung ma-approve ang imuhang request. Because so far, since the law was passed on 1956 until this very moment, September 23, 4:53 p.m., at this very moment, wala pa may student na nag-file og letter na they want to be exempted from reading the two novels. Wala pa man. So, kung gusto ninyo kamo itong pinakauna, so try ninyo. Basta hindi ay ma-exempt mo in reading the novels. So, ano lang na siya, option that you can take if you really want to exempt yourself from reading the two novels. And in section 2 of the law, yan, here, nire-require lahat ng educational institutions, especially college institution or tertiary institutions, to have a copy of the two novels and the life and works of Rizal. So meron naman tayo niyan sa STI library. Nga lang hindi nyo siya ma-access ngayon kasi naka-online class. I don't know kung isinali yon sa online live natin. I don't know if existing pa rin yung online live natin. But just in case na bumalik tayo sa face-to-face classes, or kung magka face-to-face man tayo karon nga SEM, which is, I believe, very unlikely, very small ang chances. Siguro ang chances of us na makapag face-to-face this SEM is nasa mga 1%. Kay murag dili pag siya pwede, murag delikado pa. So, kung yun lang, kung madayon tong 1% nga to, you can go to the library and check this out if you really want to read these copies. Anyway, meron din naman yung binibenta sa mga bookstores. Ayan. So, jump over lang ako from section 2 to section 4. Ayan. So, in section 4, very specific, sabi dito, nothing in this act shall be construed as amendment or repealing section 927 of the Administrative Code. Sabi sa Administrative Code, section 927, the section was actually prohibiting the discussion of religious doctrines by public school teachers and other person engaged in any public school. So any public school teachers and public school officials are prohibited in discussing religious doctrine sa kanilang mga classes. Kaya sa MSU, if you can remember it correctly, we rarely talk about religious doctrines. Religious doctrines sa aming mga subject. That's why we don't have religious history na subject in MSU. Kasi supposedly meron yan sa history, kaso wala kami kasi nga state university, public school siya. Iniiwasan na lang na ma-discuss yung mga doctrines. But in Rizal na subject, it is allowed na i-discuss yung mga religious doctrines, but it is being clarified na it should be in relation to the views of Jose Rizal. Hindi siya plainly because of religious doctrines nang you really want to preach on a specific religion, that's why you are discussing it. So kung specific ano lang, kung gusto mo lang gid mo siya i-discuss because you want everyone to be whatever your reasons are to know regarding that specific religion, bawal yon. But if related yun sa views ni Rizal, pwede but very careful dapat and sensitive si teacher in discussing um, this matter sa kanyang mga classes, especially if the institution is a public institution. So mga private institution, especially yung mga Catholic schools, they have the freedom to really discuss doctrines, of course, in relationship with Rizal's view pa rin, but they can go really and maximize these views kasi private institution naman sila. Ang naka-clarify lang naman, ang naka-specify lang naman dito sa batas ay yung mga public institution. So they can go and uh, take time in teaching their religious doctrines in relationship to Rizal's view. But here in STI, since we're not a religious institution, we are just basically a private school, nakuha natin yung kultura of the public institutions na not discussing the religious views or touching religious doctrines of Jose Rizal. That's why we don't have anything regarding or related to religion when we talk about Rizal in our subject. So, ganun din so far in more than 5 years of teaching here or almost 5 years of teaching Rizal here in STI, ganun din napansin ko rin na talagang wala sa mga coursewares namin ang yung mga ganong subject or subject matter sa aming pagtuturo ng Rizal. So, parang na-adopt rin namin yung kultura ng public institution of not teaching or not touching religious doctrines as much as possible in relationship with Rizal na subject. So, ayun. So again, yung section 1, 2, and 4 lang yung in-include ko kasi yung section 3 is the translation of the 2 novels ni Rizal from Spanish to English to other dialects kung kailangan man talaga sa mga provincial schools. So, pwede. And section 5 is the funding, yung pag-allocate ng pera in order for this law to be executed in schools, no? Especially in public schools or in state universities. So yun lang naman yun. Kaya hindi ko na siya inilagay. So for your task this week, ayan, I want you to read 01 handout 1 and 2. So ang content nito basically is just the same with our discussion but more comprehensive. Yung content, of course, ng 01 handout 1 and 2. So it's all about the Rizal Law and the challenges it faced and all other stuff related to that. So basahin nyo 01 handout 1 and 2. And after that, take the quiz 01 quiz 1A. It's an essay type quiz. It's all about still regarding our discussion for today and the topics na meron sa ating handout. So basahin talaga si handout para at least guided tayo sa ating mga answers sa 01 quiz 1A.